Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Digging Deep. I'm joined here with my colleagues in this. We have Jay and Aaron. Caden couldn't make it tonight. That's okay. Should be here tomorrow. But yeah. So Jay, what's our first segment tonight?
Our first segment today is Aaron's picks since he wasn't here yesterday. He's going to be joining us for the rest of the podcast. So, Aaron, who's your World Series picks? And then give us two sleeper teams in the AL and the NL.
Alrighty, so first off, I want to thank you guys for letting me join this. This is going to be awesome. So to start things off, I'm going to go with the NL first, and for my World Series pick, I feel like I have to go with none other than the Dodgers. I mean, look at the team they had last year. They made a run. Adding Trevor Bauer to that mix, I feel like still keeps them a solid team in the NL. I'm excited to see the race in the NL this year, though, because you've got the Padres, the Dodgers, the Braves. And now for my sleeper team in the NL, this might come as a surprise, but I'm going to have to go with the St. Louis Cardinals because you see, like, with the guys they had over the past few years, they've kind of been in like a slump per se. Like they haven't really had great seasons, but now with the addition of Arenado, they have solid rotation led by Jack Flaherty, and they've got a solid bullpen with another solid lineup behind that. So I could see the Cardinals making a deep run into the postseason this year. Now for the AL, I've got the Chicago White Sox as my favorite to make the World Series in the AL. That was a tough choice for me personally between them and the Yankees. I just feel personally that the White Sox are a more complete team and can keep guys healthy, whereas the Yankees with guys like Stanton, Judge, Gary Sanchez are getting hurt at the worst times of the season, and they fall into big slumps. So I would go with the White Sox and Dodgers in the World Series again this year, and don't be surprised if we have a repeat winner in the Dodgers this season. And my sleeper team in the AL is tough because there's a lot of solid teams that could make a deep run, but I'm going to have to go with the Tampa Bay Rays, building off of what they had last year. They're bringing back a pretty good lineup. The only thing is they're just going to have to build in another number one starter, obviously with the loss of Blake Snell. That it does hurt, but I feel like there is a solid chance that they could maybe make the championships game this year as well.
I really couldn't agree more with the White Sox over Yankees thing. That is one of the best takes I think I've heard this season. I fully agree with it too.
I don't agree.
The only thing
And you
that I
also
think,
have to make an argument for the Mets too,
yeah,
as a
agreed.
sleeper team in the NL with the addition of Lindor and Carlos Carrasco. I feel like they have built a solid team with Steve Cohen in charge there now. So I'm excited to see what they bring to the table this year.
Especially whenever you add the Blue Jays into that too. My sleeper team yesterday was the Toronto Blue Jays. I feel like when you throw in you've got the big three obviously that you've been counting on for years, but then you throw George Springer and Marcus Semien into that mix, both of which are perennial MVP candidates. Don't get me wrong. Well, Semien maybe not so much, but he was third one year, a couple years, 19 I think. So I just think that the Blue Jays got a really good shot too. They're another sleeper team.
I gotta agree. I gotta agree.
Absolutely.
But so yesterday, I kind of got a lot of hate from a few people because I said that the Athletics. I thought that the Athletics were going to be a super team, which I still do. But I mean, they have what they need to succeed to become a playoff team. Maybe not a World Series team, but definitely a playoff team this year. And I'm probably going to get more hate for this, but I just see them making the playoffs. Like it's hard for me to explain, but I just see it happening.
I agree with that too. I feel like that they could be definitely like a ALDS kind of team. I just don't know yet if their pitching is ready to compete with teams like the White Sox, who have a more complete rotation bullpen than they do right now.
I totally agree.
Okay, so I think our next topic is Let me look here. It's recent news. So yesterday, Jake Odorizzi signed a 2-year. I think it was 2-year. Hold on, let me look just to make sure I'm not
Yeah, it was a
mistaken.
2-year
Yeah,
deal
that's
with
correct.
the Astros.
So 2-year deal with the Astros.
How much is he making?
Anybody know how much?
I can pull this up right now. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking right now. I apologize. I haven't been more prepared for this, but 2023 player option as well. So I don't have the amount right now, but Aaron, what were your initial thoughts whenever you heard that news? How do you think that's going to impact the AL West race?
Honestly, that is a really good pickup for Houston because over the past few seasons, they've dealt with
Hello?
multiple injuries in the back end of their rotation.
I have how
Could
much
you
it
please
is.
repeat that? I'm sorry, I have my mic muted. We can cut this out.
All right, you still got me?
Yeah, I got
Yeah,
you
we
now.
got you. We
Okay.
got you.
Okay, all right. So what I was saying was with the Astros, I feel like with over the past few years, their rotation, they've been hit hard with injuries, like guys like Lance McCullers Jr. and guys like that. And obviously with the losses of Garrett Cole and Charlie Morton, they're kind of trying to fill those holes that they've lost over the years. So that's a good pickup for them. I feel like that'll really help them solidify them as a contender in the AL West this year.
Alex, what were your thoughts?
I actually have the amount of how much the contract is. So he signed a 2-year deal to make $30 million. So a $30 million 2-year deal, which is a very good deal. And I'm excited to see what he does this year.
What were your initial thoughts on that? How do you think that's going to impact AL West from your perspective?
I think it's going to impact it in a big way. I don't know for how long though. He is 30, so he is on the older side for a baseball player. So I don't know how much longer he has left in the league. Probably a little bit, but I don't know how long it will affect the league. And who knows? Maybe he's only with the Astros for 2 years. Maybe he doesn't make it out.
What I first heard, or what I first thought of whenever I heard it, was that they were signing him to try to fill the role of Justin Verlander. Obviously, with the Tommy John surgery, Astros fans are hoping he's going to make it back, but I really don't think he's going to make it back. And by the time he will, he's a free agent, so I'm not really sure what they're going to do then. They could do a lot of things. They could just let him go because he's getting up there in age for sure. But
Totally.
But Jake Odorizzi is a perfect replacement if they need to.
Couldn't agree more. All right, so our next topic in recent news is apparently the Washington Nationals released Jeremy Jeffress for unexpected personal reasons. He was released, I think it was today, by Mike Rizzo for personal reasons, less than 2 weeks after signing a minor league deal. So he agreed to a minor league deal and then gets released less than 2 weeks later. What do you guys think of that?
Aaron, you can go first.
All right. Yeah, it was kind of an odd story. I saw that this morning. It was just a little weird because I saw it on Twitter, and Jeremy Jeffress was kind of going off on Twitter on a lot of people. So it was kind of a weird situation. And I think there's going to be a lot more to this story that comes out over the next couple weeks. And I'm interested to see what led to this.
Me too.
His wait, hold on. Give me one second. Well, Alex, what were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was pretty weird. I thought it was pretty crazy. And, I don't know why they do it just a few days after, about a week, almost 2 weeks after him signing new deal, coming up with, all right, so I'm going to be playing in the minors. All right, still on the team. And then he gets released for personal reasons, which if it's coming out of personal reasons, there's something had to happen. He had to say something, do something. The organization was not happy with him. And I really want to know what happened, but we won't know probably for a few days, maybe a week.
So Jeremy Jeffress went 4-1 in 2020 with a 1.54 ERA in 22 games and pitched 23 innings. He had 17 strikeouts and a WHIP under 1, so he definitely wasn't bad. He was a pretty. It looks like he was a pretty solid guy coming out of the pen, especially whenever you can get him for a minor league deal. I feel like that was pretty smart to sign him there.
But to let him go, it's weird.
I feel like more personal reasons can kind of be figured out, and again, who knows? They could have tried, but if they didn't, I gotta say the Nationals should have tried more to try to resolve those before getting rid of that guy.
Gotta agree. All right. Well, another big story is that the Dodgers pitcher, Bauer, he pitched with one eye open. Apparently, to Padres, he pitched to them with one eye open, and what he had to say to it was, "Where's that at?" He said that he was just having a little bit fun, and that playing with one eye open makes him feel uncomfortable. So his main thing is, he said, I figured if they can't score off me with one eye open, it's going to be difficult to score off me with two eyes open. What are your thoughts on that, Jay?
I like Bauer, and I really do. I like Bauer, and I really like what he does for baseball. But like this is making the game fun, like kind of like we talked about yesterday. People are gonna see a pitcher like Trevor Bauer go out there, throw with one eye open, and then think that's pretty cool. And it is to some extent, but as the Dodgers, I feel like if I were Dave Roberts, I would definitely have a talk with Bauer because I want him in his full strength. Because even if that's like a passed ball, that can make a huge difference in a big game.
Gotta agree. Aaron, what did you think?
See, I think personally that Bauer's trying to use this as more of a scare tactic because that's going to be a big rivalry this year in the NL West and a big race as to who wins between the Padres and Dodgers. So I think Bauer's trying to use this to get the Dodgers a little leverage to show San Diego that they mean business and that San Diego is going to have to work to win that title. I think I'm excited to see this race out in the NL West this season.
The Padres do look pretty good as of what I've been seeing. If I'm not mistaken, they won yesterday's game, 1-0, I think. But regardless, they look pretty good, and I'm excited to see what their lineup can do, especially matched with their pitching staff at full strength next year.
Gotta agree.
So on to our next topic. We're gonna start a new series called Team Breakdown of the Day. Alex, it was your idea, so why don't you kick it off?
No, it was Aaron. That was Aaron's idea.
Oh, okay. Aaron, you can kick it off.
Aaron, what team are we breaking down today?
Alrighty, so I thought for today we would start with one of the more interesting teams leading into this season in the Chicago Cubs. So I'm going to hand it off to Alex to give what he thinks for the Chicago Cubs this upcoming season.
The Cubs. I haven't really heard much about them this year. I mean, they could be a good team. They could be, but I don't really see it happening. I mean, they're in a pretty hard division, I'd say.
They did lose Yu Darvish this offseason, coming off of a Cy Young push. But at the same time, they did gain Zach Davies, which is a good addition, especially considering that Darvish has been pretty inconsistent the last few years. You get a guy like Zach Davies who had a decent year last year, and you throw him into the mix, maybe get him some time, more time than you would get with San Diego with that rotation. I feel like he could make a big difference for them.
Gotta agree. I mean, they have a good team. Chris Bryant, Jock Peterson, Javi Baez, and then you add in like Rizzo, Contreras, Arrieta. I mean, you add that all in, the team's there. It's just the matter of the team connecting and working together and actually winning games. I mean, just today they lost to the Diamondbacks 5-4.
Wouldn't take spring training into as much consideration though, just because teams are usually playing their like third string guys just to see what they can do.
You're totally right.
at the same time, the addition of Jock Peterson really helps. And you're also banking on your stars to have a good season too, because this is probably last year the whole squad's going to be together.
Yeah.
Because Chris Bryant's going to want a lot. Same thing with Javi Baez. That both of them underperformed it last year, and the Cubs just aren't. If you ask me, I think the Cubs should go full rebuild mode now.
Totally.
Aaron,
My
why don't you
thoughts
talk
on
about their
this-
pitching staff?
Yeah. So I was thinking too, with their whole team, in my opinion, it's more of a season of many unknowns for them. And I say that because in the rotation, they lose guys like John Lester and Yu Darvish. So they've got to try to work guys in that they can replace them. Obviously, with the addition of Zach Davies, that does help. But you also got to look at the offensive side of things. Does Baez come back and have a breakout season? Which Anthony Rizzo do the Cubs get? Because he's been off and on over the past few years of having breakout seasons to going into a huge slump. So they got to figure out where he is, and the whole Chris Bryant situation. Do the Cubs try to move him this season? Do they hang on to him? I think that solely depends on what their record is come around the All-Star break. If they are really severely underperforming, I could definitely see a deal being made for Chris Bryant. But if they're in contention for the division title, I could definitely see them hanging on to him, but it's definitely a season of unknowns for the Chicago Cubs. And if I had to guess, I'm going to say they get from about the 70 to 80 win range this season.
I could see them honestly sneak into a wild card, to be honest. Okay,
I
so
could do.
we'll have to be right back. We're running out of minutes on here, so we'll be right back in a second.
Welcome back to the Digging Deep podcast. So it is time for us to get into our next segment of overrated, underrated. So Aaron, why don't you take us over on that?
Alrighty, so for this segment, we've got 7 players, and I'm going to ask them if they think they're overrated, underrated, or rated perfectly. So we're going to start with Anthony Rendon. Alex, what do you think about Rendon?
Personally, this year, I personally feel like he's underrated. I don't know what it is. It's just when you look at the Angels, you see Mike Trout, and you say, "Oh, Rendon, he was good." Last year? I mean, no one really thinks that he's that good this year. I think he's going to be good this year. I think he's going to be great, and I think he's going to have an amazing year. Jay, what do you think?
Me personally, I think that Rendon is almost at the properly rated to overrated a bit, just because me personally, I think Nolan Arenado is the best third baseman in the game. So anytime somebody puts Rendon above him a good bit, it kind of just annoys me, just because he doesn't have near the glove, and he did have a down year in 2020, but I would say more perfectly rated to overrated.
All right, Aaron, what do you think?
So personally, I think Anthony Rendon is a tad overrated. My reasoning for this is because, like Jay said, we get a lot of lists like MLB Top 5, CBS Sports, Fox that rank Rendon above guys like Arenado, like Bregman, and I just don't see that. He had a breakout season in the year the Nationals won the World Series, but we haven't just seen that production since then. He is a great third baseman, don't get me wrong, but I feel like there's just a little too much hype around him.
I really couldn't agree more with that. All right, our next
so moving
player.
on to our next player, it's going to be Carlos Correa. Alex, what do you think?
Now, that's hard to really decide. I mean, I'd say for right now, he's perfectly rated. I mean, after that whole trash can scandal, we haven't seen much. We've seen a little bit of a season of what he can do, if even. And so I think this year is going to be perfect to see if he is overrated or if he is perfectly right where he should be. Jay, what about you? What do you think?
I personally think that Carlos Correa is very underrated. The dude put up a great 2020. He was he was looking excellent. He was like one of the only guys that the Astros actually had that was playing good this year, and I really can't blame them for that because you look at how much pressure they were on. They were getting death threats for the cheating scandal. So I mean, if I had to worry about that too, I probably wouldn't play up to my best. But you just got to see Correa in the playoffs too. Like, don't count those guys out just because of like that one scandal. Don't let that distract you from the fact that they're NBA or MLB All Stars.
I gotta agree. I gotta agree. They are. That is a good team, and they have the chance to show it this year too. Aaron, what about you? What do you think?
So for me, I've got Correa in the perfectly rated category because, like you guys both mentioned, he's put up monster numbers, but we really haven't got to see him without the whole scandal. So maybe now that that's in the past and they've got a season under their belt without that, we can finally see his full potential. I feel like we have seen a majority of his full potential, and he is a great shortstop. It will be a little rough this year having fans back in the stands, so they're going to get the full experience of what they missed out on last year. But I have no doubts that Correa is going to put up a monster season this year. And if I had to go out and give a prediction, I'm going to say Correa hits in the 280s this year.
That's a very good prediction.
Alrighty, so for our next player, we have Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Off to you, Alex.
Honestly, I think he's perfectly rated right where he is. I mean, he can prove if he's overrated, underrated this year. But for now, I think he's perfectly rated. Jay, what about you?
For who was it? It was Lourdes Gurriel Jr. I think he is extremely underrated. Has had really good numbers in the past, and I feel like we've only really seen a fraction of what he can do. And with the hype around the Blue Jays and kind of how they're building up, you'll really get to see how like that can impact the player's morale. Like, it probably sounds stupid, but I feel like if a player has a good team around them, they play better because they have like more protection in the lineup. But I mean, if you're getting talked about being traded for one of the best shortstops in the game for Francisco Lindor, then something's up about you.
Gotta agree. Aaron, what about you? What do you think?
So I think I agree with both of you guys a little bit, and I'm going to put my own spin on this. I'm going to say he's perfectly rated, but this year is the make or break season for him in that category. If he has a good year like last year, I would definitely go with underrated, but I feel like even if he has a down year, I feel like we can still keep him in that perfectly rated category because he's not a guy that you really hear a whole lot about. He kind of slides under the radar. So I have a feeling that even with a bad year, he stays as perfectly rated, and he's definitely a guy to watch out for this year.
For sure. I would really be
Couldn't
watching
agree more.
anybody on the Blue Jays this year. I'm excited to see what they can do.
And who do we have next?
For our next player, I'm excited for this one. We're gonna do Chris Bryant.
Oh, Chris Bryant. If I'm being honest, I think he's overrated. I mean, I don't think I've seen much of him recently. I mean, and I think like people always say, oh, he's one of the best at that position. There are people that are better than him at that position, and let's be honest, there really are. But that's just what I think. Jay, what about you? What do you think?
I'd have to agree, just because it's been a while since we've seen the real Chris Bryant. I think he's in there, just for example, like you saw him as a second year player lead a team to a World Series and then win an MVP. Like, I definitely think it's there. He's just gotta get back into it. Like, especially after last year, I just think he's getting a bit too much credit just for having kind of a down year.
Gotta agree. Gotta agree. Aaron, what do you think?
I'm going to have to agree with both of you guys and put him in the overrated category, but I could definitely bump that down and if he would get traded, because I feel like a lot of the issues contributing to his digression over the last few seasons have been the situation that he's in. I don't feel that he is extremely happy being in Chicago. He's obviously not going to come out and just straight up say that. Something keeps telling me that he doesn't really want to be in Chicago and he'd rather be elsewhere. And I feel like once he finds that other team, he's going to put up monster numbers and maybe even go back to an MVP candidate like he has been in the past.
If I'm not mistaken, currently he has a lawsuit with the team over his that pay scandal or whatever it was. So yeah, if you've got a lawsuit with the team, then I don't really think that makes you want the team to do well, or like you don't want them to succeed, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So what player do we have next?
All right, this guy has been one of the hot topics in the overrated underrated category. I've been in a lot of arguments over this guy, whether he's being overrated or underrated, and that guy is Jose Ramirez.
Jose Ramirez. Honestly, I think I'd have to say that he is underrated. I mean, but he's playing in Cleveland. The team hasn't. When was the last time they were in the playoffs?
Last
So
year.
like, yeah. Okay, but before that, wasn't that when the Chicago Cubs won?
No, I think they made it in 2018 as well.
Jeez, man, my mind is going blank here. Then I mean, I don't know. I just feel like he's underrated. What do you think, Joe?
For me, Jose Ramirez is a very weird topic. So what happens with Jose Ramirez? I think he's overrated, and here's why. He kind of starts the season like a 230-ish hitter, like he's not playing very well, and then all of a sudden like a switch flips at the All-Star break, and then he hits 380 or something. So if he can do that all year long, I can totally see where he's thrown into MVP talks. But until he can do that for an entire season, I just can't. I just can't give it to him.
That I agree. A little bit there. I mean, I find him underrated a little bit, but that's just me. Aaron, what do you think?
Jonathan, you took the words right out of my mouth. I have to say overrated for basically why Jonathan said. He can't really find a balance of consistency. Like Jonathan said, he starts off the season in a huge slump. Then, come the All-Star break, he gets on an absolute tear, and he is one guy you do not want to face. Then, as the end of the season kind of comes, he fizzles out again. Then, September rolls around, and he starts mashing again. I don't know if he changes his swing or what happens, but if he could just stay in his, mid-season form for the entire year, I would definitely say he is a top 10 player in baseball. So I'm anxious to see now, with him being the star of the team, how he fulfills that role this year. So I'm very excited to see what he does.
To me, Jose Ramirez is almost like changing seasons in a year. You start off colder, and then you heat up a bit, and then your peak in the very middle, and then you cool off again.
Alrighty. Well, I think we have two more players?
That is correct. These next two are going to be an interesting two to debate, and we're going to actually save my favorite one to debate last. So we're going to go with Steven Strasburg next.
Oh, Steven Strasburg, World Series MVP against the Astros. What a guy. He is perfectly rated. One of the best pitchers there is right now. I mean, yes, he's out with an injury day to day, but when he comes back, I still think he's going to come back the same Steven Strasburg and be perfect. Jay, what do you think?
Here's a little bit of context too. Alex is a Nationals fan, so you can definitely see some bias there. But
there's no bias. This man is amazing. You cannot tell me he does not play well.
I'm gonna have to say he's properly rated right now. He doesn't get talked about enough, and I think part of that's because he's on an injury. But whenever he's back, he plays decent. He plays good. But I think if he comes back from his injury pretty good, and then picks up right where he left off with World Series MVP, I think he could be thrown into a Cy Young talk.
Gotta agree, man. He's an amazing pitcher, perfectly rated. Aaron, what do you think?
I have to also agree and say that he's perfectly rated because when you talk to most Nationals fan, I'm willing to bet that 9 out of 10, if asked who the best pitcher is on the Nationals, they're all going to say Max Scherzer. So I
Of
feel like
course.
he's just kind of got notched down with them getting Scherzer, but he is definitely an elite caliber pitcher. So I'm going to say perfectly rated just because I don't think enough people talk about him, even though he's shown what he is capable of.
Gotta agree. Gotta
All
agree.
right, our next one is probably one of the most controversial players there ever has been in any sport, which is Trevor Bauer. Aaron, why don't you start this time? What do you think about Trevor
Ooh,
Bauer?
all right. So you might not like my take on Trevor Bauer, and I'm sorry for this. But I'm going to go with overrated, and that's solely based off of the contract that they gave him. I just happened to see a graphic on Twitter the other day comparing him to Tanner Roark and comparing their stats for the contract that Bauer just got. Roark is beating him in, I believe, ERA, whip, and has more wins and like maybe 5 more starts. But Roark only makes 12 million, and Bauer, what was his contract again? It was over 100.
I'm pretty sure it was
I'll
like
pull it
40,
up.
42 a year. 40
Yeah,
between 40 and 42. I think it's 40, 41, and then 42 is final year.
yeah. So, I mean, for
$102
the
million contract.
yeah, for a guy that's coming off of a decent season in a shortened season nonetheless, kind of seems a little outrageous to me to be giving him big bucks like that, especially when a guy like Tanner Roark is putting up better stats than he is. I'm anxious to see what he does in a new situation with the Dodgers this year. Now, granted, when he was with Cincinnati, Cincinnati's not known well for their offense. He was kind of in a similar situation back a few years ago when Jacob deGrom in the Mets offense was pretty stagnant, and DeGrom was giving up pretty much 0, 1, 2 runs and still losing because the Mets were either getting shut out or putting up 1 run. Bauer got kind of put in the same situation in Cincinnati. So now with the powerhouse offense out in LA, I'm anxious to see what he can do to prove me wrong.
I agree with that a little bit. Some stuff in there I do. I mean, Jay, you cool if I go?
Yeah, works for me.
All right. So, I mean, I gotta say I think he's a little bit underrated. I mean, we're gonna figure that out this season. But I mean, his win-loss records from 2020 and 2019 weren't that good. His strikeouts were okay. I mean, when you go with 5 wins, 4 losses, 11 games played, 100 strikeouts, I mean, sounds pretty good to me. But when you're in 2019, 10 games played, 2 wins, 5 losses, and 68 strikeouts, I mean, there's always room for improvement anywhere you're at. But that could be improved by a lot. And I think this year on the Dodgers, he has a very big way to improve that, and he can improve that in a very big way.
I agree on both of you. I just didn't really think that using wins and losses is that good of a stat. But whenever it comes to Trevor Bauer, I think that he's overrated. And I only think that because we see Bauer in years past is just average. And to give him that much money, that I'm gonna more side with Aaron on this one. To give him that much money for one good season is just insane. Like, how can you pay that guy after one good season more than you're paying the best player in the game? And to me, that basically screams overrated.
Alrighty, well, what I think it's time for us to move on to our next topic, which is the NBA All-Star Game. So, in breaking news, apparently, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are out of the All-Star Game due to contract tracing. What do you think about that, Jay?
I think that I understand where teams come from keeping their players out of those for reasons. Because obviously you don't want your guys to get hurt, right? Like, especially whenever you're trying to make a playoff run, I completely get that. But at the same time, like, I'm not trying to say that they won't. I'm just saying if you never make it back there again, it just kind of hurts to keep him out of it for the player's sake. Because that's like, I can imagine that's like a once in a lifetime opportunity that you as a player get. And to get that more than once has to be hard. So for that reason, I don't agree.
I gotta agree with you. I gotta agree with you. Aaron, what do you think?
Well, you're going to get my bias here because I am the farthest thing from a 76ers fan, and I could debate Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid all day. I do feel bad that they had to miss the All-Star game due to COVID-19, but to Jonathan's point, they both have played in the All-Star game before, so they have had the experience. But yeah, that's my take. I mean, sucks that they had to miss it, but if it had to happen to two people, that's who I would have picked because I'm not a huge Sixers fan. I think Ben Simmons is extremely overrated. I don't think Embiid is the MVP this year. Anyone who wants to argue with me on that can have at it.
Gotta agree. Gotta agree. But so apparently, an hour ago, CBS Sports came out and they reported on Blake Griffin agrees to a deal with the Nets for the remainder of the season after clearing waivers. What do you think about that?
Aaron, you can go first. You've been covering the Nets a good bit lately.
Yes, I have. I think that is a huge addition for the Nets. They're kind of not really lacking at that position. I would have liked to have seen if they would have filled their point guard role with Spencer Dinwiddie going down for the entire season with a torn ACL. But Blake Griffin is definitely a solid addition to their bench and gives them more depth. And he's also going to be a mentor towards the younger guys. And I could definitely see the Nets making an absolute push for the 1 seed. As far as I know, as of right now at the All-Star break, the Brooklyn Nets are only a half game back of first place from the 76ers. So all it's going to take is Philly to win one, and they've got it.
Gotta agree. I gotta agree. Jay, what is your take on Blake Griffin on the Nets?
I still think that Blake Griffin's got what it takes to be an all-star. I feel like people kind of forgot about him whenever he went to the Pistons almost. But I do think that Blake Griffin to the Nets really helps their chances at a finals appearance. And the Nets just keep getting better. And I don't think they're ever going to stop. I wouldn't be surprised if they're the new Warriors.
Oh, I gotta agree. I mean, this team: James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and now Blake Griffin. I mean, that's 4 All-Stars just on the court just by themselves at one time. I mean, yeah, the team needs to put themselves together a bit and work well together. I mean, James Harden hasn't been having the best time out there. But you also have to remember, like, this is his first time. Well, not his first time, but his second time, new team, third time, whatever. I mean, it's looking horrible for him out there.
I just feel
And
like the Nets aren't going to be successful unless they can work together. Because you've got 3 players who all like to have the ball, and then you're going to add Blake Griffin in that mix, and he's the same way. And so far, they've done a pretty good job with it. I've been seeing clips on ESPN of James Harden being a really good sport, like more than he ever was on the Rockets, that's for sure. And I think he's honestly happy to be there more than anywhere else. But I just think that they'll only be successful if they can work well. The team chemistry has to be there for something to happen.
gotta agree. And what do you? Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Yes, actually, with the Nets, like you mentioned, with all the All Stars, and the Nets have actually been on quite the tear lately without Kevin Durant. They've been putting up monster points per game averages with just Kyrie and Harden. So once they get Durant back, they're definitely a 3-headed monster in the East, and I could see them definitely make a push to the finals and compete with quite possibly the Lakers, Jazz, or whoever runs the table in the West.
Speaking
Well, I
on
agree.
basketball, instead of going right to the NBA All-Star game for our next one, I'm actually wondering what you guys think of the Warriors this year. They're a very interesting team. You've got Steph Curry basically leading them to the playoffs. I think he could totally win an MVP this year. He's been probably the biggest player on that team this year. And then you've got James Wiseman, who's been doing good. You've got Clay Thompson out on an injury. You've got Kelly Oubre. So, Aaron, what do you think's gonna happen going forward? Like, what are the rest of your predictions for the NBA this year?
Thank you. So with Golden State, you actually hit it right on the head with them. I'm very surprised with how they have been performing this season. Curry is going back to his MVP form, and I definitely feel like he has to be considered for the award this year. The man is on an absolute tear, and he doesn't even have Clay Thompson out there with him. Kelly Oubre was a great pickup for them. And even in the draft, James Wiseman has been absolutely a big help for them. So when he went down with injury, they kind of went into a little bit of a slump, but getting him back, I feel like has really helped them. But my biggest surprise, two teams in the NBA this year would probably have to be the Portland Trailblazers, being the biggest surprise, and the biggest disappointment would have to be the Miami Heat for me. I mean, the Trailblazers, Damian Lillard has pretty much put that team on his back and is carrying them. Last I knew, they were like the 6th seed, and they haven't had CJ McCollum in close to a month. And they're down their big man, Yusuf Nurkic. So Lillard is definitely leading them to make a playoff run. And then with the Heat, it just kind of surprises me. Like coming off of a finals appearance last year, I mean, I know all things considered, last year was an extremely odd season with the bubble and all that. But the Heat have been in and out of the playoff race this year, and they just can't seem to get it put together this year. So, Alex, who are your two surprise teams in the NBA this year?
Honestly, at first, my biggest surprise team was the Mavericks of how they weren't doing so well. I mean, that was surprising me. Like I was really surprised they weren't doing that much. And yeah. And then my other surprise team so far has to be honestly, it was for a little bit. It was actually the Nets with how they were doing. They had a big team, couldn't do that much. It was really weird. But we're gonna have to go into another break. So we'll be right back with what Jay has to think, all right? And then we'll be good to go. All right.
And we are back. So thank you for staying with us so far. And I'd like to add on to the Warriors talk. I feel like the Warriors are probably the most surprising team in the NBA so far. I feel like they did really good in the draft. Take a James Wiseman. He's exactly who they needed. And I just feel like it's so surprising that without Clay Thompson, they were able to make this much noise. But I do think Steph Curry should win MVP. And so I'll move on to my two surprising teams. So, the one that surprised me the most is honestly the Brooklyn Nets. I expected them to be good, but I didn't expect them to be this good. I expected them to just kind of stop after getting Kyrie and Katie and then just kind of leave it there. But they didn't stop. They kept going and got James Harden, and now they look better than ever. And with the addition of Blake Griffin. Probably my most disappointing team so far is just the LA Lakers almost. They've been playing good. I just feel like they've had games where they aren't the LA Lakers from last year. And like their players just aren't like playing up to what I feel like they could be. And for that I just don't think that they are as impressive as I expected them to be. So that I'll hand it off to Aaron because he wanted to say something else about MVP. So Aaron, take it away.
Alrighty. And just to add with your Lakers comment there, you also got to take into consideration that Anthony Davis has been out for a couple weeks now. So, I mean, they definitely have been a disappointing team with the weapons that they did add in this offseason to not be contending in some of these games. But y'all got to take into consideration that they don't have their second best player. But I can definitely see where you're coming from on that.
One last thing on them is that the most surprising player for that I've seen this year is definitely I forget his name, but Aaron, help me out. I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
You might be thinking about Kyle Kuzma.
No. They just got him from
the Clippers, Montrezl Harrell.
No. He's smaller.
Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, Dennis Schroeder. He has played so well from games I've watched. Like, I never expected him to do this well. I've always thought of him as like a finishing type defense guy first, but he's just played so good this year.
I
And
agree.
I apologize for not remembering his name too. By
Oh,
the way.
you're
No
good.
worries.
You're good.
All right, so to kick things back off with the NBA, another surprise team that I feel like we almost can't leave out is the New York Knicks. Who would have, if somebody before the season would have told me that the New York Knicks would have been the 5 seed going into the All-Star break, I would have told them they were crazy. But then again, it is 2021, so anything could happen. But I feel like the Knicks are definitely surprising a lot of NBA fans this year.
People have
Totally.
definitely forgot about R.J. Barrett as well. I feel like the hype around him really died down, but he's still, in my opinion, the third best player out of that draft class.
I gotta agree.
Then to move on with the NBA, I feel like we have to talk about this guy, Bradley Beal. He has been dealt the wrong deck of cards this year. How many times has that guy dropped 40 plus and they lose? There was a graphic I saw the other day, and I'm pretty sure it's been over 10 games since that he's dropped 40 that they've actually won, which, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's just not right. He's usually the only guy with, well, I shouldn't say that. Westbrook sometimes drops 20, but usually besides those two, they're the only ones scoring over 15 points. I cannot believe that he has not requested a trade yet, but I got to give credit to him for sticking it out. But I just feel like he deserves so much more than what he's been given in Washington.
I've got to agree with you, man. He's a great player, and because he's with Washington, he's not going to stand out. Like, he's going to stand out in Washington, but he's not going to be known as one of those top tier players who, like, he needs to be traded. He needs to be traded. That's all I can really say, is that he just needs to be traded.
Agreed, and I always feel bad for a player like that who just plays so well, yet their team falls short. Because at that point, it's basically you do everything you can at the end of the day.
Totally.
And then to go on with Bradley Beal, this is one of my sports takes that just makes me so mad, is when people say that like NBA MVP race can only be people from winning teams. I could not disagree with that anymore. You look at a guy like Bradley Beal, and even Zach LaVine for that matter, that put up monster numbers and have improved over the past how many seasons, but people simply leave them out of the MVP race, like they don't even play, because the team that they play for doesn't have a good record. To me, MVP stands for most valuable player, not most valuable team. So even if the Wizards were winless or undefeated, that should have no bearing on whether Beal's in the MVP race or not. I don't know what your guys' take is on that, but I just think it's a little wrong that it's based off players from winning teams.
I could not agree more, and it should be the same thing for every sport. And especially, I think that championships should be taken out of consideration whenever it comes to the greatest of all time debate. Only because you could put LeBron on a bad team and say the team plays crappy, like Bradley Beal, for example. Say Bradley Beal was the GOAT, just hypothetically, and he's playing amazing, yet the team's just still not getting it done, then I would still consider him the GOAT then, even though his team's not succeeding. He might not have as many rings, but he might have the same personal, personal accomplishments as everybody else does.
Well, yeah, but like speaking of LeBron, like I'm not saying LeBron is the greatest of all time, but if you go back to that game, to the finals game against the Warriors, where he drops 50 points and they still lose, I mean, that's crazy. He drops 50 points and his team can't even help him win. Like, they can't win that game even though LeBron dropped 50 by himself.
So we've got two more topics for the NBA. The first one being LaMelo Ball. I feel like he gets a lot more credit than everybody else. Like Anthony Edwards has been playing just as good and should get credit too. But I gotta say, I didn't think LaMelo was gonna do nearly this well going into this season, and he's really proved me wrong. He kind of looks like a natural almost out there. He looks so comfortable. But Aaron, what are your thoughts on that?
I also agree in certain ways. I feel like he is putting up better numbers than Anthony Edwards. Like, don't get me wrong, Anthony Edwards is having a good season, but he's kind of been one of those inconsistent guys on a week to week basis where he has good games and then he just kind of he gets off stride and his shots just don't fall. But no, LaMelo Ball definitely proved me wrong as well. I was not expecting him to have as great of a season as he's having. And partially, I think it's because after watching his brother Lonzo for so many years underperform and all that, that I just expected his brother LaMelo to be the same way. And he's been the complete opposite. And I can say this now that I think LaMelo only playing half of a season and Lonzo playing for as long as he has, that LaMelo is already a better player than Lonzo is.
I gotta
Agreed,
agree.
for sure.
Like I don't like. There's nothing I really could say to add on to that because like everything you said, I 100% agree with. LaMelo is definitely playing better than Lonzo has, and I have to give it to him. He surprised me.
So our last topic for the NBA, I'm going to hand it over to Alex to talk about. Oh my gosh, I'm doing it
Colin
again.
Sexton.
Yeah, Sexton. Yeah. So there you go.
Colin Sexton is a beast. And March 3rd, played the Indiana Pacers. 43 minutes, 32 points, 4 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals. I mean, that's crazy. Colin Sexton, he's amazing. He is amazing. March 1st.
Most improved player maybe this year.
Maybe. March 1st, Houston Rockets, 42 minutes, 39 points, 3 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals. It's great. It's crazy. Alrighty. I mean, that's he could be MVP, but who knows?
So I'm gonna start us off with the NFL. We've had a lot of quarterback drama this offseason, more than we've ever had. We've had the Deshaun Watson drama. We've had now Russell Wilson wanting out apparently, and then on top of that, we've heard Aaron Rodgers saying some fishy things. So, what are you guys' thoughts on that, as well as Drew Brees possibly retired? Do you think he's gonna come back? And if he does, how are the Saints gonna play?
I do not think he's coming back. I mean, after that playoff game against the Buccaneers, he looked at Winston and said, "This is your team now." And I think he meant it. I don't think he'd tell him that and be like, "You know what? I'm going to come back for another year." I think he's done. I mean, I would love to see him come back and do well and hopefully make the Super Bowl. I would love to see Drew Brees in the Super Bowl win it, and that'd be awesome. But I don't think he's coming back.
I gotta say, as a Saints fan, I'm sick of being hurt in the playoffs, and I really think we would have won a ring in 2018, but that last game just hurts. And I just have a hard time believing that he's just gonna go out like that. But even if he does, he's still gonna have the legacy that he had before. He just is always gonna be remembered by those lost playoff games.
That is so true.
Aaron, your thoughts on Brees?
So my take on Brees is I do think that he will be back for one last season. The only reason I say this is because I feel like he may have been going into this season thinking it was going to be his last, but I don't think he can go out like this. He threw 3 picks in their last playoff game. There were no fans in attendance, and I can't see that being how he wants to end his career as a New Orleans Saint. So I do expect him to be back for one last season, and if they don't take it this year, I do feel like he hangs it up no matter what. But to get into the other quarterback news, I mean, look at what offseason. This is going to be a crazy NFL offseason, and I cannot wait to see it. You got guys like Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, and maybe even Aaron Rodgers on the move. I mean, who would have ever thought we'd see those 3 on the move in one offseason?
Totally agree. And then, so based on those, say all three of them get moved. What do you guys think is the best fit for each one of them, or where they're gonna go? So we'll just go around. We'll start with Deshaun, then we'll go to Russ, and then we'll go to Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron, you can start with Deshaun.
Alrighty. So Deshaun Watson, I have been talking about this guy for the past few months with all these rumors swirling around, and I solidly believe that he next season will be either a New York Jet or a Miami Dolphin. I feel like those two teams have probably given the most solid offers for him and are the teams that have the most draft compensation that Houston wants. They may not get a great quarterback in return in Tua Tagovailoa or Sam Darnold because we've both not really seen a whole lot from either of those guys in their career. Now, granted, Tua was a rookie last year, and Devontae Parker, their number one receiver, did have an extremely down season, but I could definitely see Deshaun Watson playing for one of those two teams next season.
I'll chime in next with Deshaun Watson. I honestly believe that he will be a Denver Bronco by the start. I think that the Broncos will offer Drew Lock. I think that most people would probably find that crazy. But if they do, I can't see the Texans just turning that down. And I just feel like the Broncos are only a bit away. Like maybe not from the Super Bowl, well, for sure not from the Super Bowl, but from a serious playoff run. And I feel like Deshaun could really do a lot for them. Although I wouldn't be surprised if he went to the Dolphins. I just think that they're going to stick with Tua, and I think that the Jets are also going to stick with Darnold or take a QB in the draft. But for sure, whoever doesn't get him is going to take a QB in the draft.
I don't think he's going anywhere, if I'm being honest. I don't think Houston's giving him up. I think he's going to have to ride out his contract there. And once it's done and over with, he's going to leave. But I don't think they're giving him up. And as they really shouldn't. I mean, it's horrible for their organization and for other players that are going to come like, oh, you're a good player. I mean, yeah, they released J.J. Watt because he asked for it. But at the same time, maybe he felt like he had to get out of there before they did the same thing to him. But
Agreed.
I don't see him going anywhere, which is sad for him, and I feel bad for him about that.
Okay.
One more
Next.
thing with Deshaun Watson, actually, before we move on, is with your comment thinking he doesn't go anywhere. I feel like he might. Well, I mean, he already did tell the GM and head coach that he is not playing, so I almost feel like he might pull an Anthony Davis with the Pelicans and just sit. So even if he stays on the team, I feel like he won't play.
I agree. I really do.
Yeah.
So I think I'll start with Russ on this one. To me, I do think that they're going to move Russ. I don't necessarily know where yet because I don't think I've heard enough rumors yet because it's only been like a week since that happened. But I do think that he's gone. And I think it's more because of them taking him out in an MVP race and instead of like because if not, he totally could have had an MVP that season. And I think he's still a little bit frustrated with that, and I don't blame him. But right now, I would say that he'd be a perfect fit to pick up where Drew Brees left off. And if the Saints can figure out their cap problems, I would totally see him fit in right perfect right there. Aaron, what do you think?
So my take on Russell Wilson is two options here. He either stays in Seattle or he's going to be a Chicago Bear. I
couldn't agree more.
I could see why he'd want out now, especially because obviously we all know Seattle has a very bad O-line. But not only that, but now he's going to have to face each of these guys 2 times a year. Nick Bosa, J.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, and Chandler Jones with Arizona too. So he's going to be under a lot of pressure in a couple games next year. So I could see him saying that telling them that if they don't improve the O-line and it's back to what it was last year, that he's done. But if they can get some help to protect him, I definitely think he stays.
My reasoning for the Saints is because the Saints were one of the teams that he listed, and I just really don't see the other teams. I'm not mistaken. I think it was the Raiders, Bears, and Saints, and one other, right?
Yeah, I do believe the other team's not coming to mind at the moment, but
Me neither, but I remember looking at it and thinking that the Saints are the only one with serious quarterback problems if Breeze is done. And I'm not saying that Jameis Winston is a bad. He's just not the guy that's going to win you a Super Bowl.
Honestly, I see Rush going to the Bears. But like I also want to get into like Aaron Rodgers here too. With Russell Wilson, well, Russell Wilson said that he doesn't feel like he is a top 5 to top 10 quarterback. Now, if Aaron Rodgers were to say that, he would get so much hate. But yet Russell Wilson says it gets no hate, gets no nothing. You got to think about that. Russell Wilson is a top QB, and I don't know where he is coming from saying that of all time or even now he is not a top QB. That I don't understand that. Like Jay, what do you think about that? Do you think if Aaron Rodgers said, "I personally don't feel like I'm a top 5 to top 10 QB," do you think he'd get hate for it?
I think that people should not really weigh on players' opinions at some point because at the same time, I would honestly praise somebody like that for saying that because that's just showing how humble you are. You're gonna put like everybody else but you first, and I get mad respect for that.
Aaron, what do you think?
my opinion of Aaron Rodgers is he will 1,000% be back in Green Bay next year. Excuse me. And he will. I do agree with Jonathan on the fact that it does show obviously how humble he is, but nonetheless, I mean, when it's true, I feel like you almost have to say it because I mean, let's face it, Aaron Rodgers is definitely a top 10 quarterback.
Russell Wilson, he's the one who came out and said that he doesn't feel like he's a top 10 QB. But I'm
Yeah, no,
saying
I'm
someone
saying
like
if
Aaron Rodgers,
Rodgers
yeah,
would
yeah,
say that.
he definitely is. And I mean, let's be honest, Rodgers has been quiet lately. Like he hasn't said anything about this whole situation, nothing.
I do think though, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is gonna go anywhere though. Like to add on to that, I really don't. I just don't see him leaving just yet. I could totally see if they fall short again because of another coaching decision. I could totally see it. He's gone though. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So
Alrighty.
we have two more topics for football, and then we're on to baseball for two more to close it out. We've got first we have give us your early predictions and surprising teams going into the offseason. So I'll start first. My early predictions are that I think we're gonna see the Packers in the Super Bowl up against the Chiefs again. I don't think it's gonna be long until the Chiefs start to crumble though, because they're gonna have to sign Kelsey soon, and I feel like that the Chiefs would win that one for sure. But my two surprise just teams that are slept on. I feel like the New Orleans Saints are slept on. They've got the best receiving core in the NFL, and they have one of the best defenses whenever they actually play like it too. But I can totally see that not happen if Winston plays bad too. But I also think that the Bucks are going to shock people and come back and make another deep run. But I don't know. I don't think they're going to make it again.
Honestly, I think that the Arizona Cardinals are going all the way. They're winning it. That team is stacked. You got Buda Baker, Isaiah Simmons, DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray, J.J. Watt. I mean, the list goes on and on. That is a huge team ready to go. They're going to win their division, going to win the Super Bowl. Aaron, what do you think? Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl this year?
Alrighty, so my Super Bowl picks as of right now on the NFC, I've got the Buccaneers going back for a second straight season. I mean, how can you not take Brady at this point? I mean, he's shown what he can do with a new system in the first year being there. So I, without a doubt in my mind, see the Buccaneers going back for a second straight year. Now, the AFC is where things get a little tricky because you've got Kansas City, Buffalo's going to want revenge, and Pittsburgh should have a bounce back year. Pittsburgh probably has one of the best defenses in the NFL. Plus, if we do land Aaron Jones in free agency from Green Bay, that fills our need at running back. We just need to rebuild that O line, and there's no doubt in my mind that Pittsburgh could make a run at the Super Bowl this season. But it's definitely going to be a fun race in the AFC because you've also got teams like Tennessee and Baltimore that could contend too. So the AFC is definitely a tight conference. Now, my two surprise teams going into the offseason and next season are going to be the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals. The 49ers had so many injuries this past season that I feel like getting everyone back next year, you figure they're going to get George Kittle back, Nick Bosa. Richard Sherman was out multiple games, Jimmy Ward. They just had so many injuries up and down that roster, even guys like Raheem Mostert. So I feel like once they get everyone back and healthy, plus the possibility of landing Teddy Bridgewater, that team could make a run at winning the NFC West this year. And same goes with the Cardinals, adding J.J. Watt. They're just a few key pieces away from being a dynasty in the NFL.
All right, so I think we should move on to baseball to finish it out, and then we've got a few stories too. So for baseball, let's jump into award predictions. We haven't done that in either of the episodes, so I'll let Aaron go ahead and start. So, Aaron, who do you think's going to win the awards? Just do MVP, Cy Young, and Silver Slugger. Or not Silver Slugger, Rookie of the Year.
Okay. So, for NL MVP, I'll give you my top three because I don't have a definite yet, but my top three would be Fernando Tatis, Mookie Betts, and probably Freddie Freeman for a third year. You could even maybe throw in Ronald Acuna and Cody Bellinger if they have bounce back years. AL side, obviously you got to give it to Mike Trout, Jose Abreu, and maybe this might be a surprise, but I could see Eloy Jimenez maybe being in the race this year if he has another solid year. But even guys like Stanton, Judge, if they stay healthy, I could see them being in the race for that too. My Cy Young picks, I would have to say the NL, I'm going to go DeGrom, Trevor Bauer, and Clayton Kershaw, because those are three solid arms in the NL, and I feel like Kershaw is going to have another solid season. You could even throw Blake Snell into the mix now with being with the Padres. And then in the AL, I'm going to go Shane Bieber, Zach Plesac, and Garrett Cole. And then for Rookie of the Year, I've got to give it to Ke'Bryan Hayes. AL, I'm a little uncertain still of who I think it's going to be. Jared Kelenic from the Mariners could have a very good shot if he can stay healthy. So it's going to be a fun race in all the categories this year. But what about you, Alex?
Yeah, so for me, MVP, I think Tatis for NL. For AL, definitely thinking it's going to be like Trout. Rookie of the Year, I don't really know about that one. I don't really look into prospects and everything, but yeah. So Silver Slugger, right? Is that what we're doing? Or
No, we're doing Cy Young, MVP, and Rookie
oh,
of the
Cy
Year.
Young. All right, Cy Young. It's a difficult one, but I don't really know at this point in time. That's just really hard for me to guess on. But yeah. So Jay, what do you think?
I think I'm just gonna give my full-on just my picks. I think for MVP, I've got to go with Mike Trout in the AL, and then in the NL, I think Christian Yelich is gonna do it again. When that dude was healthy in 18-19, if you look at his stats, he had alone just hitting, he was better than Trout whenever it came to hitting. And if he can bounce back and come back up to those stats like they were as insane as they were before, I could totally see him win another MVP. For Trout, it's Mike Trout. He's the best player in the game. And he just keeps getting better as time goes on. So I just can't see him slowing down. For Cy Young, I gotta go with Jacob deGrom. He just looks like he just keeps getting better too. Although I don't think it's gonna be long until Luis Castillo wins one. But if Jacob deGrom, especially if the Mets can get some success too, and we can see some playoff action, I could definitely see it go to him. And for the AL, I could totally see in the AL if Lucas Giolito won it. He's a big sleeper, and I would not be surprised at all if he came out and played just as good as last year and won one. When it comes to Rookie of the Year, I gotta say Ke'Bryan Hayes or who's the other one? I'm just gonna go Ke'Bryan Hayes. He looks the best he's ever been, and me and Aaron have seen him play in person at AA Altoona, and he just there was always just something about him that he looked better than everybody else. And if the part in the podcast that the Seattle Mariners GM did isn't true and Kelenic does play, I could totally see Kelenic win Rookie of the Year as well. So I think now we can move on to prospect standouts in spring training. Who have you been most surprised with, Aaron?
All right, so this guy isn't a prospect. I haven't really got to see too many spring training games yet, but from what I've seen, Gregory Polanco has been on an absolute tear this spring. I think he's got 2 or 3 home runs. He's actually hitting for contact and not striking out that often. So I know he's not a prospect, but I definitely feel like if he can stay healthy this year, he might finally have the big season us Pirates fans have been looking for in the past few years.
I really don't know who's gonna be like a big prospect. If I'm being honest, I've gotten to see like 1 to 2 spring training games. And like I said, I don't really follow prospects. So, Jay, what do you think?
For me, I've been extremely impressed with how Robert Hassel has been handling being up on the stage. In the games he's played, I feel like he's just played way beyond anyone's expectations for a high schooler playing in Major League Spring Training against some of the best pitching like in that division, especially playing with the crazy Padres team that's formed this offseason. But I've also been extremely impressed with Andrew Vaughn. The dude has hit 2 home runs, if I'm not mistaken, and I could see him starting soon for the White Sox, if not DHing this year. And
Totally.
I think to close it out, we could probably talk about just what do you think, Aaron? How do you think we should close this out?
I think we could just
All
close
I've
it
got
out.
to say all I've got to say is it's been a pleasure. I absolutely loved this, so I can't wait to do this more often with you guys. This has been extremely fun. I'd just like to add too, if anyone watching ever has any questions or topics we want to talk about, feel free and leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear some input from you guys.
For
So I'm
sure.
gonna hand it over to
Totally.
Alex.
Alrighty, guys. So I think this was a great podcast for today, and we cannot wait to catch you guys next time. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Yep. See ya.